ready to apply or to accept. Our ability to estimate what it is going to take to do a job has got to be separated out from our ability to do the job. And I think the Mars Science Lab team is doing quite well.
Okay, we'll have Seth next.
Seth Borenstein, AP, again for Administrator Griffin. You talked about how scientists often downplay the prices when they're selling it to NASA, selling it to the community.
NASA picks off the list of community priorities, and the competition within the community to be first on the list of a given decadal survey is fierce and is driven by price. Yes.
Right. So given that this decadal survey that MSL was on, it was listed as a medium cost, under $650 billion in the decadal survey. That was just 5 years ago. Is there some blame at the National Academy or at the scientists for underbilling this, or at NASA for accepting this underbilling? I mean, how many times do you have to be? The question is, at what point do you say, okay, we know these numbers aren't going to be real? I mean, do you go into that saying that?
We do, of course. I'm going to surprise the science community and defend them on this. Let me go through with you the purpose of decadal surveys and the purpose of cost estimates as we try to get them. The purpose of the decadal surveys is to get from the best working level scientists in the world what their mission priorities would be to accomplish the scientific goals of the moment. Generally, at NASA, we participate in those things. We absolutely have some world-class scientists, but NASA as an institution doesn't really put fuzz on the decadal surveys. Okay, we work with the people who prepare them. We might not fly the #1 priority if we don't have the budget to do it, but we certainly understand it, we respect it, and we don't try to spin it. Now, there is not a really good way when you're very early in mission formulation at the decadal survey stage, there is not a really good way to get an independent cost estimate that anyone would believe. And so when the previous questioner said, why does this keep happening? It's because there's not a really good way to estimate on the very front end of a mission what it is going to take to accomplish these scientific priorities, even if no one was competing. And then, of course, in an environment where there is, in fact, some dependence on the selection of mission priorities on what those will cost, there is a tremendous pressure on all of the different scientific teams advocating different priorities to demonstrate that, as I sometimes say, I can name that tune in 2 notes. Now, that pressure sort of actually levels out across all of the missions on a decadal survey. So we're probably best off if we take the priorities from the decadal survey as being relatively good, but don't attach too much weight to the cost. So what I've been trying to do here at NASA with the team that has to implement these is to put in place better independent cost estimation techniques and more of them and more adherence to them. The James Webb folks the folks who did the independent cost estimate, for example, on James Webb, would tell you that they predicted essentially the cost that was later found to be the case. That wasn't the cost the mission was sold at, because the proponents of the mission said, nah, the independent cost estimators have got their head in some untimely place. We know it's only going to cost $2.2 billion, and the independent cost estimators are saying it's going to be $3.5 billion, and they're wrong and we're right. Well, guess what? It didn't turn out that way. So I've been trying to, and we are, not just trying, we are succeeding, I think, in putting more rigorous methodologies for independent cost estimation in place at the agency. But no, we don't have, and no one has the resources to apply those methodologies to every mission on the decadal survey list, and there are several decadal survey lists. You have to actually begin designing the mission at some substantial level of detail before you have the input data that the cost methodology guys need. So you really can only get a valid, useful, intelligent, independent cost estimate after you're fairly well down the road, which is why Doug McQuistion earlier made the point that the agency doesn't commit to, the Congress doesn't believe and shouldn't, any budget estimate which is made before we have a confirmation review. Mars Science Lab was not confirmed at whatever the earlier number was, something under $1 billion. Mars Science Lab was confirmed at 1.65, 1.63. So I'm sorry for the long-winded answer, Seth. I mean, you know, but you always ask good questions, and the truth is, I really don't know how to take a set of missions on a decadal survey and attach a cost number to those missions that somebody would believe for the purposes of prioritizing them. So we prioritize by scientific priority. We do try to get a Kentucky windage on what the cost is going to be, but we have to go well down the path on mission design before even the best people in the world can give you a cost you'd believe. And that's just the truth.
Can I add one more thing?
I'd rather not. Let's
Okay.
move on.
Sure.
Okay.
We're running out of time. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, Mark.
Thank you. We know that from what you've said that there will be additional cost as a result of the delay. Are there any other costs, scientific costs, in terms of having this delayed, in terms of the progress of planetary science exploration, you know, other missions that might be going from from NASA or elsewhere around the world? Are there any losses as a result of that?
Of course. I mean, we would have liked to have launched in 2009, followed up with, you know, our Mars Scout in 2013, and then a 2016 mission. That's going to have to be relooked at. You know, maybe we'll still have a good Mars 2016 mission because we do it in consort with the European Space Agency. So hopefully that will alleviate some of the impact to the Mars science program, ultimately, at least looking at the world view. There will be impacts. You know, I don't know how, I can't tell you exactly what, but we'll probably have to delay a major planetary mission to come up with the cost. But again, we will not do that without full and open disclosure with the scientific community that will be affected through the independent review process that's already in place under the NASA Advisory Committee. So we will do that in consort with them. There will be impacts. Science will be delayed. We don't want to cancel science, however. You know, that'll be the goal. I don't want to take that option there. However, you know, if a group of scientists that are authorized to give us such advice tell us to cancel MSL, then it's something we'll have to consider. But there are other stakeholders, obviously, too. You know, we haven't mentioned the Congress is a stakeholder, the OMB is a stakeholder, the White House is a stakeholder. They also have a role. So perhaps the science community won't be the final word, whatever advice we might get from them.
Okay, final question, Keith.
I'm going to as Keith Cowling, NASA Watch, I'm going to parse my questions by fashion here for the guys with ties. First, an observation. Well, you're welcome. In 2001, Ed, I think you were standing right here, and I asked you about these two little rovers, and you were, with all honesty, said, you know, Keith, they're going to cover with dust, and those little critters are going to be dead. That's why we have two of them. Squires is nodding. Nobody thought that these amazing things would keep going. You reprogrammed spacecraft that are 35 years old, half outside the solar system. And yet Dr. Griffin, with frustration here, says that every time we do something like this, the cost estimation is something, it's A, being done for the first time, and B, it's still vexing that you can't nail this down. That said, this keeps happening. Is the answer bigger reserves? You just have a bigger bucket and just up front say, hey, I swear right now I'm doing my darndest, but it's going to cost overrun. I need a bigger bucket. Or is there some other tool that you've never been given, some lightning bolt or piece of software that can just break this weird symmetry here?
Let me start. It's not really weird. I frankly expect it, and you know, to provide a bigger reserve just creates a self-fulfilling prophecy.